Hello, friends, and welcome to the Good Stories Podcast. My name's Jody, here again with my big brother, Steven. And if you don't know already from other episodes, we are huge fans of the late, great George MacDonald. I think at one point we even tossed around the idea of naming this the George MacDonald Podcast. We are big fans. He's wonderful. He was, in case you don't know, a Scottish author, poet, and minister born in 1824, died in 1905. And I think we've mentioned before that he had a massive impact on the writings of C.S. Lewis and other Inklings. C.S. Lewis said this of George MacDonald. Here's a quote. "What he does best is fantasy. And this, in my opinion, he does better than any man." Which is a massive compliment and probably still true. So our story this time is the first of the Curdie books, and it's called The Princess and the Goblin. It's a fairy tale full of wonder and depth, like everything George MacDonald wrote. It uses a sweet story to reflect on the things above. That is, things divine but unseen. And I like this story in particular for its emphasis that each person's walk of faith, it looks different. So here we go. Time for a story.
This story takes place in a strange country ruled by a good king, but underground there dwell a race of goblins who resent the humans on the surface. The king has a daughter, Irene, who he tries to protect from the goblins who wish to kidnap her. The Princess Irene lives in a big house in the country where she will be safe so long as she doesn't go out after night. One day, while lost in the house, she discovers her wonderful great-great-grandmother. The experience is dreamlike, and she at times doubts the reality of the experience, especially since no one else knows of her presence. One night, the princess, accompanied by her nurse, gets lost out on the mountain after dark, where she is accosted by goblins. She is saved and escorted home by a miner boy named Curdie, who is not afraid of the goblins at all. Later, Curdie learns of the goblins' plans to capture the princess and flood the mines. He is captured by the goblins, but the princess, with the help of her grandmother, is able to rescue him. Curdie must then work to foil the plans of the goblins and see if he can in turn rescue the princess.
So this one came out a long time ago. This is an old story now, 1872. It's a long time.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, it's super fun. I had not read this specific George MacDonald before. It's delightful, the whole thing.
And it's such a good story, to use the phrase. It's deep, but the story itself is just fun. The characters are fun, what happens to them is fun, and you find yourself as you're going through it really wondering, how is this going to end and how is this going to resolve?
I find the goblins funny. They're kind of hilarious, actually. And their problems and conversation.
I've highlighted several descriptions of the goblins through here because his descriptions of them is wonderful. If you see pictures of George MacDonald, anyway, when I look at him, he looks like a pretty stern guy, but this is so light and so funny. And he does so much of the fourth wall breaking in this. There are some stories that you're just immersed in the story and he tells it through, but this very clearly has the feeling of him reading or telling the story to us, because there's little asides and little, he's always telling us about what a true princess should be and different little quips. And so it's very light in the way it's written.
Yeah, it's kind of moralistic at times, but there are such deep things in it, because to me, that is George MacDonald. He takes whatever platform, whatever story he's going through, and there's just this super immense, deep thought, ponder stuff mixed in. And actually, this one surprised me, because when we did, so this is our third George MacDonald. We did At the Back of the North Wind and Photogen and Nycteris. And I remember taking notes on At the Back of the North Wind, and like every single page I was highlighting and highlighting. This one, not so much. It is more of a story that you read through, but there is depth there too. And I actually like that. It was less distracting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, through a lot of George MacDonald, I do find that his preaching comes through so strongly, and I mean that in a great way. He is a fantastic preacher, but it does sometimes break up the flow. Whereas this one, the preaching kind of is the story. And so you're right, it didn't seem to break it up as much to me.
Yeah, more of a continuous story, and it is more fun. It's very lighthearted and sweet, I thought. So, do you want to get going?
Yeah. So this starts in this country, and this country has goblins, although that's not the only name that gets used. So I'll just read from the book. Now, in these subterranean caverns lived a strange race of beings called by some gnomes, by some kobolds, and by some goblins. The tale we get is that these creatures used to live on the surface, but for various legendary reasons that he doesn't really know the answer to, they decided to go underground. He talks about maybe it was to escape taxation or didn't like the rule of the king, but they went underground a long time ago, formed their own society, and really veered off from the human race. They're kind of human, but also kind of not.
So I did not know what a kobold is. They also call them cobs. The miners in it, they call them cobs, which is another one.
Oh, I thought we were going to get to that.
We will.
Okay.
They are not called that at the beginning. The cobs specifically come later with the miners. But kobolds, I actually looked up. And do you know kobolds from another story?
I know kobolds from World of Warcraft.
Yeah, that's where they're mentioned. And it said they're often related to tiny dragons, which that is not the goblins in this story, to my mind, at all. But there's different kinds. And that's probably also from the game. Household kobolds, mine kobolds, and ship kobolds. So these clearly would be mine kobolds. It says the miners in the game, anyway, they both fear and respect them.
They are fairly comic in the game. So, big surprise. I'm a huge World of Warcraft fan. Love it. Have played it for years. And kobolds are one of the lowest level bad guys if you're playing the Alliance side. And they're kind of comic relief. They're always looking for candles in the dark. They venerate and treasure candles because they live in mines. But as the game progresses, at upper levels, you get some pretty ferocious and pretty mean kobolds. So that's where I have had the most exposure to them.
And the goblins have that spectrum, kind of silly ones and then more intense ones. It does say here at the beginning that when they went underground, they grew in knowledge and cleverness, cunning and mischief, and that they're misshapen. Mm-hmm. And this reminded me a lot of in The Hobbit, talking about the orcs and their cleverness, right? They were clever with fire and magics in that way. They have this too, that kind of clever mischief, and there's is a little funny in this. Their aim is to devise troubles for their neighbors. Yeah.
It's important to have a goal in life.
They're annoying. But the description of our protagonist is Princess Irene, and the reason she's in this lonely country house is not really explained. She's born, and it says that her mother was not very strong. And so she's sent away to live in this big house castle, kind of in between up and down. Mm-hmm. It's kind of midway on a mountain. So you outside, you go up, it's a mountain, you go down, you're down in a valley. She's kind of midway. But yeah, the dad, the king, is a good king, but he's very rarely there, and he stays for one day.
Yeah, doesn't show up often.
And it says he's out taking care of his people, so that's at least good-hearted, and she loves him. But her name, I looked up, Irene, is from the Greek that I cannot pronounce Greek.
Irene.
There you go, meaning peace. So she's our peacekeeper, a peace seeker throughout this. And I love how he describes her eyes. Because she, as you said, is not allowed to go out at night. She's never seen the stars in the sky at night. But her eyes look like stars have melted into them. Little star-eyed baby. And she's what, 8 years old?
8 years old. And the restriction against her going out at night is not a restriction of cruelty. It's not that she's being kept in the tower or that she's being locked away or prohibited from seeing them. It's a safety thing. The king knows that these goblins will try to take her. And so that's why she's not allowed to be out under night. She has to be inside where she's protected. It's
different in this fairy tale. She was not cursed at birth. So many princesses cursed at birth. That's not her thing, but she does need to be protected. I am going to push forward a little bit. So there is a sequel to this called The Princess and Curdie. Okay, Curdie is a character in this book. We meet him. We learn lots about him. But at the beginning of The Princess and Curdie, it talks about mountains. And it is wonderful. The thing is pages long, so I won't read it. Oh, we should do that on a short because it's beautiful.
I'm in.
Have you read it recently?
Yeah.
So good. He talks about what is a mountain. And he describes it in great detail, so much better than I can summarize. But it's basically that mountains were part of the belly of the earth in the heat, the molten belly. And they pushed up through it into where it's cold. And so they've become this entirely different thing. And he describes the mountains on the outside and what they're like in the cold, and also what's on the inside. And it is a wonderful, wonderful description. I loved all of it. We should do that. Remind me.
Let's do it.
Okay.
The princess is a little girl. She's 8 years old, and like little girls and all children do, she gets bored. So she's inside. He talks at length about her toys and how wonderful they are, but he won't try to describe them because there's no way he can describe how great her toys are.
They're too good.
Too good. But even these she gets bored of. And so one day she starts exploring the house. She gets lost exploring the house. And she keeps going. She goes up a stair and she sees this other stair that she's never seen before, this really high, windy, tight stair. And she goes up to the top. And at the top of the stair, she meets somebody. And I love the title of the chapter, The Princess and We Shall See Who.
It's a hint. You skip the doors. I like the doors. Okay, so she goes upstairs because she's wandering, and she's usually with her nurse. Her nurse is kind of always there. Her
Looty.
Looty is her always companion, but this time she wanders off. And yeah, there's endless doors. And I love how she roams around. I think this is the first part where he talks about what a princess does, because she gets sad because she loses herself. That's the name of this chapter. The princess loses herself. And she has a cry in the dust because, it's scary.
Says after that, she did not cry long, however, for she was as brave as could be expected of a princess of her age. After a good cry, she got up and brushed the dust from off her frock. Oh, what old dust it was.
I love that, where it's been untouched so long. But here's her princessness. She resolves to go on very wisely and methodically. And yeah, she eventually sees this stair. And she knows it's not the right one to get back because this one goes up. And she came from down below. But it's interesting, this idea of a half-open door. That was her door. All these other doors are shut. And most of them are locked. They're not for her. They're for something else. Very Narnia and the Magician's Nephew and the pools. Mm-hmm. The world between the worlds.
Yeah, who knows what adventures are behind the other door?
Those doors are for somebody else. But her half-open door takes her to the staircase up. And yes, then we shall see who she meets. Such a hinting. That's very much the fourth wall thing. Who are we going to meet next?
And who we meet next is a wonderful, magical, ancient woman. This is a theme throughout a lot of George MacDonald, the idea of age and beauty and wisdom and goodness all rolled into one. This woman is a mystery that Irene had never met before, and their meeting it's just great, the way they meet, because this woman obviously loves her, invites her in, and they talk back and forth.
Well, first she hears a sound. There's sweet humming. And she doesn't know what because there's 3 doors at the top of the stair. And the stairway itself is a climb. It says she has to go hands and feet to climb up this steep thing. But at the top she hears this humming, if I can find my quote, like the hum of a very happy bee that had found a rich well of honey in some globular flower. It's just a delighted bee sound. But she's invited in. And this woman, this grandmother, welcomes her. She's beautiful, but there's always something with the eyes.
Yeah.
And she can tell she's very old, at least 50. She asks her, are you 50? Whoa. She's like, oh, even older than that. But she has these eyes and that's how she knows they're old. So many stories, I think, use that idea of you can tell someone's both depth and age from what their eyes look like. The Ents, right? They have history in their eyes. This lady has some history in her eyes.
Yeah, she does. But she is a figure of love from the beginning. She sees that the child has been crying, and she says, then why didn't you come to me to wipe them for you, to wipe her eyes? And Irene replies, please, I didn't know you were here. I will next time.
Yeah, it's so sweet.
There's a good child, said the old lady. And they talk about their names. She says, do you know my name, child? No, I don't know it, answered the princess. My name is Irene. That's my name, cried the princess. I know that. I let you have mine. I haven't got your name. You've got mine.
And she describes that she's Irene's father's mother's father's mother, her great grandmother. I like Irene. It's such a child response. She's like, I don't understand. What? It's very confusing. But she is clearly safe and loving. And they have this back and forth. She asks how old she is and how does she eat if nobody knows you're here? She's like, well, I keep poultry of a sort.
It's a very practical question.
It is.
How do you eat? How do you live? The sort of poultry are pigeons. so many pigeons that are hanging out, and she's got a little pigeon coat where she can pull the screen away and she can take the little eggs from the pigeons, and it's cute.
It is cute. It's sweet the whole way. But she tells her, hey, you need to go back because your nurse is going to be worried about you. And the grandmother won't walk her down, but she says, I will take you to the top of the stairs. And then the nurse finds Irene and she's relieved to find her. But the chapter ends with, guess what she was spinning?
Mm-hmm.
Do we mention it was a spinning wheel?
Yes.
Okay.
It was the sound of the happy bee. The princess is delighted by her grandmother and is excited to share the story with her nurse. Her nurse, though, is not interested and doesn't seem to be able to understand or hear. She doesn't believe it, doesn't believe that the grandmother exists. And it's an interesting personality difference between the two, between the open and believing and warm-hearted Irene and the bit more light in the sense of not serious nurse who just can't accept that this is going on.
She can't accept, and there's clearly some fear there. Irene asks her, well, what were you afraid of? You know, she was there, she was somewhere. So Irene doesn't have fear, but her nurse has been, I think, commissioned to take care of her, to protect this little girl. Irene is confused. What are you afraid of? And Ludi doesn't actually answer that. But they have a fight. I think Irene says something about, well, you're not as pretty as my grandmother. And the nurse takes it personal.
Yeah.
Like she called her ugly. It's like, no, it's not an insult to you. It's a compliment to my beautiful grandmother.
It actually bothers her nurse to the point that she says, bother your grandmother. And I love Irene puts her nurse, that's very rude. You are not fit to be spoken to till you can behave better.
There's some tension. I like this part where Ludi tells her that, oh, you dreamt it. And, you know, she doesn't take her serious. And Irene is offended because this meant a lot to her. She says, no, I didn't dream it. I went upstairs and I lost myself. And if I hadn't found the beautiful lady, I should never have found myself. She was lost and she was found. And this is where we learn more about princesses. They cannot lie and they can never be rude.
Oh, of course not.
Yeah, at some point, though, Irene realizes that Ludi can't help but disbelieve her. And that somehow makes sense in her mind. Like, oh, that's where you're at. You weren't there. You didn't experience it. So she kind of forgives her and accepts it, that Ludi can't believe this wonderful experience that Irene had.
Mm-hmm.
But Irene keeps thinking about it. She's, obsessed is the wrong word because it's all positive. So the next morning she's eating her egg for breakfast. And she saw the pigeon's eggs, and she wonders what a pigeon's egg would taste like. Ludi's like, oh, we'll get one for you. And here's where she says,
oh, no, returned Irene, suddenly reflecting they might disturb the old lady in getting it, and that even if they did not, she would have one less in consequence. She cares about the grandmother and the pigeons. She doesn't want to disturb them. She's just curious what it would taste like. And then this is where Ludi says, what a strange creature you are, said the nurse, first to want a thing and then to refuse it. But she did not say it crossly, and the princess never minded any remarks that were not unfriendly.
So there's a lot in this book about the weather. Did you notice this?
Mm-hmm.
The rain, I mean, there's this super rainy day before. That's why she was inside and bored during the daytime. And I think today might be sunny. I don't remember. I feel like everything he writes about has some symbology. Like, what is it? Is the rain cleansing? Is it just mountain crazy weather and I'm looking too much into it?
No, I guarantee there's some symbolism to it, but I can't tell you off the top of my head what exactly it is.
He is very specific about the weather.
Yes. Yeah. Well, nature in general, you can tell he loves nature. Going back to your description of the mountains, nature for him is something that is very much alive, something that is beating with the vitality of the love of God. And even rain, even sun, stars, moon, clouds, it all has some nature, some aspect of the divine. And it can be used for pure appreciation, but it can also be used to shape things. Everything in his stories is guided by a higher power. And so if there's a rain that keeps you indoors, you are meant to be indoors that day. So I think that's the way he uses it, at least on one level. Yeah,
kind of to direct her actions. So this isn't an exact quote. I'm improvising, but she tries to find the stairs again. But it says it was a day much like yesterday, but the days are not the same. Today might look the same as yesterday, but it is not the same as yesterday. So this time she can't find it. But this time she finds what she calls the next best thing. Instead of the stairs up to her grandmother, she finds other stairs, and they go down to the kitchens, and they're excited to see her.
They love her. Everyone loves her.
She's sweet.
They pamper her and take care of her, and she has a great time.
But because she can't find it again, she does wonder, did I just dream it? Was Ludi right? Did I make this up the whole time? So she's kind of spinning in her own sweet head about it.
It's in the next chapter that we get to meet Curdie. Curdie's great.
I looked up the name because it's a weird name, Curdie, but it's kind of some speculation. Cur is more like a common thing, a cur, but also curdled milk. I mean, it's very common. He is very common. He is a minor.
At a young age. I think he's older than Irene, but not by much. He's a teenager.
12, I think, in this book. And so this day, the sun's out, and Irene is out in the sunshine, and she does. She's like a happy little bee herself. She just bumps around from sweet thing to sweet thing, and the mountains are beautiful, but she's not supposed to be out late, and the nurse gets distracted. So when the sun starts going down, the shadow of the mountain falls, Ludi runs for home.
Yeah, freaks out, tries to get the princess to run after her. The princess can't run as fast. She tries to carry the princess, but the princess is heavier than Ludi can handle. And so she's grabbing her by the hand and really running, and they start to see things.
Yeah, Irene's cute. She's like, don't you see that funny man by the rock? And Ludi does not think it is a funny man.
No, not at all. She is terrified of this. And is this where we start meeting we meet the goblins, but is this where we start meeting the animals of the goblins?
Not yet.
Okay.
He says, I'll describe those later. In the book, he says, wait, you'll find more about them later.
I'm very excited about them, but I'll wait till later.
You have to wait. Ludi's very afraid, terrified running down this mountain. She goes the wrong way. She knows she's lost because she panicked and was running, but then they hear whistling and then singing, and the songs are great.
They're ridiculous. They're exactly the kind of thing that a very bold, brave 12-year-old would be shouting out. So the first one, ring, dod, bang, go the hammers clang, hit and turn and bore, whiz and puff and roar. Thus we rive the rocks, force the goblin lock, see the shining ore. 1, 2, 3, bright as gold can be. 4, 5, 6, shovels, mattocks, picks, and it keeps going. He just keeps counting and keeps going through all these rhymes. Ludi says, be quiet.
Yeah, you're going to bring the goblins down on us. And he comes up on them and says, actually, no, they hate it. They hate these songs. And apparently, if you misspeak, they don't care about it at all. There's a specific meter and verse to it, although you can make up your own. And if you do it right, that super works.
The power of verse is wonderful, how this gets portrayed. Curdie clearly knows the goblins and knows of the goblins, and there's great emphasis placed on the fact that he's not afraid of them. And since he's not afraid of them, they are afraid of him. And this verse, this rhyming, this singing, especially if you can make it up off the top of your head, they hate it. It makes them run. It confuses them, and it's a weapon that he can use against the goblins, especially here on the surface where the goblins don't want to be to begin with.
Yeah, so the goblins only come out at night. I love that his songs have some bearing on the general number of goblins about. So this first song, there's like 1 to 20, but later when there's more goblins, he has different songs for that. But he says that the goblins can't sing themselves, for they have no more voice than a crow. They can't sing.
Now, Curdie doesn't know who he's talking to, but he is talking about the goblins, and the nurse says, don't go frightening the princess. Now Curdie knows, and he says, the princess, repeated the little miner, taking off his curious cap. I beg your pardon, but you oughtn't to be out so late. Everybody knows that's against the law. It's against the law for the princess to be out because the goblins are going to come get her like they're trying to do.
You know, the singing and the music made me think of Orpheus in the underworld.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Can you tell that story in like a minute?
Orpheus was the great bard of Greek legends. He was married to a beautiful woman named Eurydice, who was bitten by a serpent and died. Orpheus couldn't stand that, so he went to the underworld, and he alone of all the human race was able to charm the underworld. He was able to charm the three-headed dog Cerberus to go across. He was able to charm Charon on the boat crossing the river Styx. And he was able to charm Hades and Persephone themselves, the king and queen of the dead, to get his wife back.
With his song.
With his song. And in the only time ever recorded, they showed mercy. And they said, yes, you may have her back because of the beauty of her song. But on the way out, you must not look back. If you look back before you get to the sunlit lands, she will disappear and you will never see her again. And this is Greek, which means it's a tragedy. He gets almost up there and then he looks back just to see her slipping away and going back down. And no power of his song after that is ever able to bring her back.
Well done. We can talk about Orpheus sometime because he annoys me. There was no reason he should have looked back. No positive could have come from that.
It's true, and it gets even worse. He just goes around moping after that, irritating people, and he ends up getting pulled to shreds by angry women because he won't pay attention to them. It's a weird story.
Greek stories are weird.
But the first part is beautiful.
His song was my point. It's something special. And Curdie is a song maker.
Absolutely. If you want the Orpheus legend, but with a happy ending, go to the Middle Ages and read Sir Orfeo.
I have not read it. I maybe should. Maybe that would help me like him more. Anyways, he knows it's against the law for the princess to be out. He points it out, but he tells Ludi, well, you shouldn't have been scared. You wouldn't have lost your way if you hadn't been frightened. And he tells, because they see more goblins and she wants to run again. He says, no running. And Irene has confidence in him. She says, he says no running. We're not going to run.
Seems to know what he's doing.
But yeah, so they stay there and he walks them down back to the castle safely.
As he does, Irene is very, very grateful and promises to give him a kiss when they get back to the castle. Ludi does not think this is a good idea.
Inappropriate.
Princesses should not going around kissing dirty little miner boys. But Curdie, he's got class. And
he says he's a good boy and a brave boy, and she wants to show him gratitude. Ludi says no.
Well, and Curdie sees this kind of fight going on or about to start, and he says basically that he's going to see her again, and he'll get his kiss later.
Yeah, later's fine.
Problem solved.
He's sweet. None of this nettles him. He's very cheerful, and he helps me. He teases the nurse a little bit, but is kind-hearted. We like Curdie. He's a good guy.
What Irene, though, is emphasizing here is the importance of a princess keeping her word. She promised she would kiss him, and so to her, Ludi is making her go back or break a promise.
So Curdie goes back up the mountain to his cottage, and he goes to sleep because he's not worried about goblins. It's funny, he wakes up in the middle of the night and hears something, and there's goblins outside his window doing something annoying, bothering their neighbors. Says they're annoyed with him for helping the princess because Ludi said it very loudly. That's the princess.
Yeah, and now they know.
Stop. It was a secret. But he's unafraid, and so he sings them off, and the next morning he goes back to sleep again. He really is unafraid. The guy has no fear related to these goblins. He's kind of got the code. And the next morning he heads off to work into the mines.
And I love his goal for working. One is he's just working because that's what you have to do to eat and do what you do. But the other thing is he wants to work harder and longer because he wants to get extra wages that he might buy a very warm petticoat for his mother, who had begun to complain of the cold. So that's what he's working for. He wants to get his mother a present.
Something warm to keep her warm. It is. So he stays late that night, and it talks about anyone who stays late working in the mines, they can hear the goblins. Because the goblins are active at night too. So they can hear the goblins doing whatever goblins do in their space. They're close, but not together. So the miners are aware of them, and they happen across them sometimes. There's these huge caverns that they find that they know the goblins must have made those, but they don't live there anymore once the miners show up. But that night, he stays late to make extra money, and he takes a break. I think he puts his head against the rock wall, and he actually hears them talking behind him. He hears goblins behind him just chatting.
A very domestic chat. This is a goblin family that is being forced to move because the miners are encroaching on their territory. And they're very forthcoming in this conversation. Curdie learns a lot. He learns that if he keeps digging the way he's digging, he will break into their home, but it's going to take a while. But if he just kind of stopped where his head was laying, he's there. It's very shallow there. So he learns that he's almost in the goblin's domain. And this, I think, is where we first learn of the weakness of goblins. They have a weak spot, and as we all know, it is the feet.
Very soft feet. Very tender.
but without toes. Apparently, goblins have no toes. I love this. It's so crazy and ridiculous.
The emphasis on toes in this book is hilarious. There's this family of goblins is talking about how they heard that the sun people up there in the upper regions, they have like 5 or 6 things sticking off their feet. It's weird. And the sun is appalled. Like, that is so gross. Why don't they fix it?
I think it's here shortly hereafter that we learn that this is a big part of goblin culture, though, this idea, because goblins are so proud of their heads. Their heads are so strong. They're like iron. And so people can beat on a goblin head all day with a sword and it won't do any good. But you step on their feet and it gets the job done. But the toes are something that, as you say, they think are just disgusting. They're gross. They're what is up with that? But apparently in the past, the goblin kings had taken sun wives, so human wives brought down. And so there's rumors going around that the queens of Goblin Land and some of the royalty might have toes.
Shh. It's embarrassing.
The queen, though, is allowed to wear shoes.
Oh, none of them want shoes. So the kid goblin is like, he asks, well, why don't we wear shoes? Because they have soft feet, right? Why not protect them? And that's when the toe discussion comes up. And the goblin mom basically tells him, I will beat you if you ever ask to wear shoes again. And he's like, no, I don't want shoes at all. They're silly and hilarious. But yes, the queen, the goblin queen that came from the sun people, she died giving birth to the prince. And his family's like, that was silly of her. We don't do that. We're way better than that. It must have been because she wore shoes.
Must be.
It's so sad.
So Curdie's listening to all this, and he also hears them talk about some plans. There are some plans going on that aren't going to be good for the humans. He doesn't know what the plans are, but he realizes that he needs to get some more information. The goblins start to pack up and leave, and there's all sorts of discussion about who's going to carry what. And, you know, that's too heavy for me, and I'll carry that.
Because of my soft feet.
Because of the soft feet. If he had harder feet, it wouldn't be a problem. The goblins start to leave, and Curdie realizes he's going to lose them. So he starts to dig through what he knows is the narrow spot. He almost alerts them because rocks shift and fall, but he's able to hide himself. And he's able to get through, jump down, and follow them to wherever they're going by the light of their torches.
Yeah, in this conversation, we also learned that goblins think a lot of themselves. They clearly left the upper regions to humans for very grand reasons that, you know, we don't need to mention them, but they're obvious. They're very proud of their ability to make their own light, because relying on some globe in the sky, how lame is that? Like, they make their own. But Curdie sneaks through this hole and he accidentally touches the kid goblin. And the goblin's like, oh, a beast licked my foot. Gross. I like that this makes his dad question his patriotism, his goblin patriotism. He's like, will you malign your native realms and suggest a beast would lick your foot here and reduce them to the level of the country upstairs? That country is swarming with wild beasts of every description. The beasts are up there. They're safe where they are, and they know better. They're really pulling their kid goblin along into their idea of we're better than them in all ways.
They're patriotic. They love their other goblins, and they're just convinced that they are right in all ways.
Oh, man, it's hilarious. The dad goblin, his name is Glump, which is just a great goblin name. The whole thing is good.
Curdie follows them. They keep going, and they come at last to the hall of the Goblin Palace. I imagine this big underground burrow. I mean, it talks about really how beautiful it is, how there's, you know, shining lights and things on the ceiling and the torchlight, and it's gorgeous. But here is where he meets the Goblin King and the Goblin Queen. I say meets. He's sneaking around. They don't see him.
He's listening.
But he's listening so he can come up with what's going on. And this is where Glump actually interrupts and speaks up.
Well, it's the Chancellor who is speaking in very verbose wording. I mean, these goblins have some process and pomp and circumstance amongst themselves. But yes, Glump interrupts to let them know that, hey, the humans are close to breaking into my house. That's why we just moved. And there's something about the water.
Yeah, the water underground is dangerous. George MacDonald talks about that in the book, that all miners know that. Water is something that can kill you fast underground. We learn in this chapter is that the water of the goblins, the river that's running kind of through the goblin underground area, is higher than the area that the miners are mining. They call it a gang. The area they're mining, they refer to it as a gang, and it's lower than where the goblins are. And so there's two plans that are being developed. And I think here we sort of get the sense that the first plan is for the goblins to release that water into this lower area and wipe out the miners and kill them all.
Yeah. Here's the chancellor's speech. He says, "Hence it appears that two plans have been for some time together working in the strong head of his majesty for the deliverance of his people. Regardless of the fact that we were the first possessors of the regions they now inhabit upstairs, regardless equally of the fact that we abandoned that region from the loftiest motives, regardless also of the self-evident fact that we excel them so far in mental ability as they excel us in stature, they are out for vengeance."
Yes.
They're going to take them out. But we also learned that flooding out the miners, flooding the mountain, that's plan B.
Mm-hmm.
They don't refer to it this way, but there's a plan A in the strong head of the king that will achieve peace for them.
The king in his wisdom has this all set up, and plan A will clearly work, so they won't need plan B, but they are grateful to the good glump for bringing the information to them.
Curdie realizes he's not going to learn any more right now, so he tries to get back to where he came in, but he's in the dark. He didn't bring his torch, and he was just following them in the dark, and now it's still dark. But here's his difference with him and Ludi. Ludi got scared and she ran, she panicked, she got lost. Curdie does not panic. He's in the dark, but he also doesn't get lost. It says morning's not going to come where he is. It is full dark. They're in the middle of a mountain, which is terrifying to me, truly.
I agree.
Oh man. But he doesn't get lost and he doesn't panic, and he actually finds his way back out. Because he's awesome like that.
He is awesome. And then what does he do? Like a good boy, he goes and tells his dad. He tells his father what's going on and what's happening here. And the two of them kind of come up with a plan, and then they both go to bed.
Yeah, they decide, like, hey, now that we know that about plan B, flooding them out, flooding the outlet, they can kind of be ready within a day's warning. So they're not too worried. They're going to pay attention, and then they get some sleep. Because you got to get sleep to make good choices. This is very pragmatic.
Well, the focus now goes back to the little princess. The little princess in the next chapter is where we meet her King Papa. And I enjoy the way they describe that.
He's both to her. It makes sense. King Papa.
And he really does paint a very, very impressive picture. He comes riding in with his retainers around him. He's a mighty knight on his horse, but he loves his daughter. His daughter runs up and he quickly pulls her up into the saddle, and they hug and talk. And it's a sweet scene.
Yeah, I like the description. He's so poetic in how he describes things. So the king has this dark beard with silver in it, and Irene has golden hair. It says she got that from her mother. And so the two together were like a cloud with streaks of the sun woven through it as they hug together. It's adorable. Oh my goodness.
And even the horse is sensitive and gentle and cares. So this battle charger says he walks very softly because he knew he had a little lady on his back.
Yeah, so they share a meal, and then the king asks Irene, "Now, my child, what shall we do next?" Apparently, this is their tradition. And she tells him immediately, "I want you to take me to see my great old grandmother." And the king is very serious.
Remember that the grandmother is a mighty and powerful being. She's special. And when she steps in and intervenes, special things happen. I think in some ways she's perilous in the high meaning of the word. I mean, perilous in the sense that fairyland is perilous. That is the perilous realm. And so if she's communicating with his daughter, I think that gives him pause, because that probably means something is going to happen. Something is going on here. The other thing is, I think this chapter shows just how highly the king esteems her, because again, the princess wants to go see her. And I love how she keeps describing her. My great old grandmother, my huge, great, beautiful grandmother. I mean, there's all these terms of bigness, right? So she turns the word great into all sorts of other things. But the king answered to her and says, Not this time, said the king very gently. She has not invited me, you know, and great old ladies like her do not choose to be visited without leave asked and given.
But the king does find out somehow, we don't know how exactly, that the princess had been out after nightfall.
Mm-hmm.
And Irene is sweet. She says it wasn't the nurse's fault, and she shouldn't get in trouble. But the king tells her once might be too often. Does that mean something terrible could have happened?
Yes.
And that might be too often? Or that she has changed somehow now by being out at night?
No, I think it is purely for her protection. If Curdie hadn't been there, the goblins would have taken her that night. So even out once is too many.
So when the king, he talks to the nurse, he makes her cry, but she's still Irene's nurse. And he leaves more men to guard out in the garden outside, to defend the walls, to keep his princess safe. So the next one, we move on. It says autumn comes and goes. And again, beautiful descriptions of the weather and the sunny days and the rainy days. But throughout this time, Irene still hasn't seen her grandmother again. And it says she often wishes that she hadn't been a dream. She's kind of convinced in her head. She still wonders. She thinks about her a lot. But it's another bad weather day. And the housekeeper this time lets her play with these old treasures. And they seem to really be beautiful, like old jewelry and things. But a brooch actually pricks her thumb.
Yeah, on the pin of the brooch.
And it's bad. It seems to she gets feverish. It gets worse and worse. It describes how these poultices keep coming off and it's throbbing. And even in her dreams, the pain is still there. Like this poor kid.
The pain woke her up. And in my book, it's capitalized, up. At last, it woke her up. Something is going to happen now. And so she's awake and she starts exploring again and she starts going to look for her grandmother and she ends up back in stairs and she ends up back on that landing. I'm not sure we described it originally. When she got up the stairs onto the landing, there were 3 doors. There was the door with the spinning wheel and then there were the closed doors around it. And one of the doors was, Grandma said, was her bedroom. She said that's where she kept her crown.
Yeah.
And
you can see it later.
Yeah. Well, later has arrived.
Yeah, this one, she actually follows the moonlight. It's shining in her window, and she wants to put her thumb in it because it'll cool it off. She's thinking, I love this just rationale. Like, if I get my hot fever thumb into the moonlight, it will help cool it off. But she follows this silvery path of moonlight up these stairs. This time, she's definitely being guided. And we do learn more about the globe of light that comes. Her grandmother has some power over the moon and the globes of light hanging in the sky that the goblins have no patience for. Turns out they can do something. But this time the princess, she's not afraid. She just wants to see her grandmother again. And as she's walking in the moonlight, I like this line. She says, if grandmother is a dream, I'm likelier to find her when I'm dreaming. She feels like she's dreaming as she's walking this path. And when she's called in to the spinning room door.
Yeah, starts in the spinning room.
Grandmother tells her, you would have found me again sooner if you didn't think I was a dream. So believing that it really happened, despite what other people told her, that seems to matter.
Yeah.
But grandmother's still spinning. And this is where they talk about it, where she only spins in the moonlight. But the princess is so sweet. She calls her my great grandma. She's trying to be super respectful. And the grandma's sweet. She says, I'm not so great as all that. Just a great. You may call me grandmother.
As she's spinning, it's shining in the light and it's very fine and very beautiful. And earlier we were asked to guess what she was spinning. I did not guess this.
Me neither. No way.
She is spinning spider webs. But not just any spider webs, special webs from a particular kind of spider that her pigeons bring to me from over the great sea. There is only one forest where the spiders live who make this particular kind, the finest and strongest of any. So she's spinning, and what she has is this little collection of this beautiful shining cord.
Thread. It's thread. When the moon starts to move along, grandmother asks Irene if she'd like to see her bedroom. And they go in, and it is beautiful. The description is beautiful. And in the middle, I called it the moon lamp, but it's this glowing orb, like her own personal moon in the middle of the room. And it's enough to illuminate everything, but it's gentle. Such a beautiful description. And here's where she notices Irene's thumb, and she pulls out this ointment to help it. And everything in her room smells like roses.
Yeah. And she's a healer, and this ointment heals. She rubs it in, and the pain goes away, the redness goes away. Her thumb is back to normal. Her grandmother has healed her with this ointment.
And so the grandmother asks if Irene would like to stay the night. What little girl doesn't want a slumber party? That's a great idea. But her moon lamp, it's still illuminated. And Irene asks, are you going to put out the light? And she says, nope, it never goes out because it is the path home. It's what calls her pigeons or anyone else who sees it. Rare, but it happens every century. If you see it, it calls you home.
Yeah.
It's the guide back. And as they're falling asleep, the grandmother gives Irene a task. She says, you have to do something. You have to come back to me on a specific night. Mm-hmm. And grandmother tells her, you may be sure I will do all I can to help you come to me, but it will rest with you yourself after all. The work is Irene's to do. She has to remember, she has to do it, regardless of circumstance. And then they go to sleep, and when she wakes up, her hand is better. Mm-hmm. She's perfectly well, but she's in her own bed.
There is one last passage in here that I enjoyed. As the slumber party is being proposed, the grandmother says, you won't be afraid then to go to bed with such an old woman. No, you are so beautiful, grandmother, but I am very old, and I suppose I am very young. You won't mind sleeping with such a very young woman, grandmother? Fun switch.
I do think George MacDonald had a heart for children. I mean, a lot of his stories have that sweet, childish conversation. I mean, that is something a child would say, child logic, and it's very beautiful. Didn't he have a bunch of kids?
He did.
I think he liked the kiddos.
Oh, he loved children. He loved writing for children, and he loved kids. Yeah. And he had a lot of them.
So here we shift to Curdie. I like this. It's called A Short Chapter About Curdie and His Mom. I think I added the and his mom, but it fits.
It does, because they trust his mom, and they bring her in on the secret. So his mom now knows.
Yeah, so he's investigating goblins. He wants to know what plan A is, right? They know about the water plan, but he wants to know what's plan A. And the descriptions of his mom are wonderful. She's clearly a hard woman. So the grandmother's always described as very beautiful body. Her skin is smooth and young looking. His mom is the opposite. She's had a rough life. She's a hard physical laborer, but she is no less beautiful, and he loves her no less. And it says that she kept their home like a little heaven in their poor cottage on the high hillside. And her hands are rough, but it doesn't make her less. And I love that, just as different roles. Mm-hmm. They have different roles, different things. But Curdie is in the mines all the time, and he uses a trick from Hop o' My Thumb where he keeps a string, tied to his pickaxe where he comes from, so he can follow the goblins wherever they go in these mines, and he can find his way back.
So there are two things in this short chapter that really jumped out at me that I think in some ways are keys to the entire book. The first is the reference to Hop o' My Thumb. Do you know that story? Are you familiar with that one?
I'm not. I thought it was like Tom Thumb.
It's not. I mean, you would think it would. It's still about a short little guy, but not as short as Tom Thumb, and it's a different story. It's I believe, comes to English through the French. I think it's a Charles Perrault tale, and it would have been in English at the time that George MacDonald was writing. It was very important to George MacDonald that people understood that he knew the story, because he says right here, not that Hop o' My Thumb had ever used a ball of string. I should be sorry to be supposed so far out in my classics.
He's read it.
So, yeah, he's read it. And so, again, the two things that I think kind of serve as a key to the Princess and the Goblin, and hopefully I can explain this more as we go through. One is the use of the ball of thread, or the clue. This was originally spelled C-L-E-W, and a clue is just a ball of thread or yarn or string. But this comes straight from Greek mythology, not from Hop o' My Thumb. This actually comes from Theseus and the Minotaur. So Theseus, of course, is the Athenian prince who volunteered to go to the land of Crete and descend into the labyrinth in order to fight the Minotaur. He would have died if it hadn't been for the king's daughter Ariadne, who gave him this clue, this ball of thread, and said, unwind it as you go, and then you can follow it back to where you are. And then he did, and that's how he got out of there. This story, actually, the idea of clue, the word that we use as clue as in something to solve a problem, comes from that adventure. This was a tool or a trick that helped get out of a difficulty. And so over time, that became our word clue. I think the story of Theseus and the Minotaur is one of the major influences on this work. I mean, think about Curdie going down into this labyrinth in order to chase and confront evil using a clue to get him in and out, which he has secured to his pickaxe. There's going to be a few more points as we go along in the story that I think really emphasize this, but I think Theseus and the Minotaur, major influence. The other one is Hop o' My Thumb. Hop o' My Thumb actually has a lot of kind of Hansel and Gretel to it. So Hop o' My Thumb was the youngest of 7 children, and like in Hansel and Gretel, the parents couldn't afford to take care of them, so they took them out into the forest, and Hop o' My Thumb got himself and his brothers back by means of these little pebbles. The second time out, he took breadcrumbs like Hansel and Gretel, and they got eaten by the birds, so he couldn't get back. They're lost in the forest, but instead of coming across a fairy house made of sugar, they find an ogre's castle, or in some versions of the story, a giant's castle. They go into the castle, and the ogre has 7 little daughters, and these 7 little boys get offered to spend the night there. Now, they know that in an ogre's house, things are going to be dangerous. And so before they go to bed, Hop o' My Thumb switches with the daughters, the golden crowns the daughters were wearing, and the little bonnets that all the boys were wearing. So when the ogre comes in the course of the night to kill the little boys, he actually kills his own daughters, goes back to sleep, and then Hop o' My Thumb and the boys can escape. Obviously, when the ogre wakes up, he's upset about this, and so he puts on his 7-league boots. We had talked about this in one of our earlier episodes. These were boots that would allow him to go 7 leagues at a step, and so the ogre chases him down. Hop o' My Thumb, though, is able to hide with his brothers until the ogre gets tired and the ogre goes to sleep, and then Hop o' My Thumb steals the boots from off the sleeping ogre. These are magical boots which then can fit to his feet. They change in size, and he then uses these 7-league boots to make his fortune. So I want you to remember that this crafty, plucky little fellow stealing footwear from an ogre while sleeping. So I think both Hop o' My Thumb and Theseus and the Minotaur are going to play huge roles as we go ahead. And it's all in this little chapter about Curdie.
I knew you'd know. Where did you read Hop o' My Thumb?
Most recently, Wikipedia, I'm sorry to say.
Well, Charles Perrault, I don't know if I have a Perrault book.
We don't have Charles Perrault, but we have stories of his. When we did Mostly Magic, several of those were Charles Perrault tales.
Yeah. The other thing that happens in this chapter is he keeps getting his clue, his ball of thread, a string, knotted up, but he's tired when he gets home, because he had to like pick it up quickly, run in ahead of the goblins. So sweetly, his mom unravels it for him. I just love it. It's a caring act. And sometimes he can't get the knots undone, and he asks her, like, how do you even do that? She says, I follow the thread just as you do in the mine. She follows it backwards. So we all have our role.
This family is great.
They're
the
sweet.
dad, Peter, the mom, Curdie, they're just wonderful.
Curdie calls the goblins cobs. You wanted to talk about cobs.
Mostly what I wanted to talk about is what an insulting term it is in The Hobbit when Bilbo is calling the spiders in Mirkwood cobs, lazy cobs.
Irene thinks it's rude. Like, don't call him that. Very rude. And he defers. You cobs. I don't know if it's very rude. I'm sorry. I hope not.
Yeah.
So here we go back to the castle. And the king, when he left guardsmen, right? Extra men to help guard his princess. And here's where we start seeing descriptions of these strange creatures. They are, quote, so grotesque and misshapen as to be more like a child's drawing than anything natural. So initially, one guard sees something and thinks, what was that? That was crazy. And all the other guardsmen, they laugh at him. Oh, well, you've been seeing things, right? Ooh, but then a second one sees something entirely different, but also crazy. And one at a time, these guardsmen see these crazy creatures. Turns out they are the goblins' animal pets. I mean, they're nutty.
They're tame. They're the goblins' tame pets. When the goblins went underground, they took their animals with them. And the same way that the goblins are human-ish but no longer human, have morphed, their kind of wickedness and evil has changed them physically, the animals partake of that. They are part of this degeneration that occurs. And so these animals turn just frightening and creepy. And I love this concept, the idea of goblin animals, of pets.
House pets.
It's great. I mean, I guess we do kind of see similar in Lord of the Rings and the Silmarillion. I mean, I guess this is kind of what the flying beast of the Nazgul are, right? Creatures that have degenerated or turned and have taken on the nature of their owners. But it's just fun and clever and brilliant the way he uses it in this book.
Yeah, and I didn't get the sense they're necessarily evil. They definitely, there's something to this idea that you can't grow properly without the light. Okay, so they've been kind of twisted by living in a place without any light at all. It reminded me of a story I heard once. This man was describing how they tried to grow watermelons, but it didn't work. And so they put a pool, on the ground, on the grass. But then these blobs grew up underneath the pool. They pushed the plastic up. And when they moved the pool, there were these albino watermelons because they had grown up in the dark, no light whatsoever. And so they are changed by it. And so these pets have been changed by it, and they call them their bears and cats and things, but they're very arbitrary. Not one of them was like another, hideous and ludicrous at once, but they are freaking the people out. They do not belong there. And it turns out the goblins' tunneling has opened up a hole for the waterway into the garden. It's opened it up enough that these creatures can come out, and they love to go exploring at night.
Yeah, it's exciting.
And it comes out right by the castle.
And we're back to water, the importance of water and the stream. And that's gonna play a big role in the chapters that come.
Mm-hmm. So this next chapter is called That Night Week, which is a funny way of saying the night when Irene was prompted by her grandmother to come back. So this has to happen. She has to show up. But these creatures are alarming. And this weird cat creature on stilts, I mean, it jumps through her window and it's freaky. And she runs.
Let me read the description. It was like a cat with legs as long as a horse's, Irene said, but its body no bigger and its legs no thicker than those of a cat. She was too frightened to cry out, but not too frightened to jump from her chair and run from the room.
And so she runs outside, but she doesn't run up the stairs. Like, again, it's where you panic and you make the wrong choice. You get lost when you panic. She doesn't run up the stairs. She runs up the mountain, outside.
And there's a great line here. It was foolish indeed, thus to run farther and farther from all who could help her, as if she had been seeking a fit spot for the goblin creature to eat her in his leisure. But that is the way fear serves us. It always sides with the thing we are afraid of.
I wrote that down. Oh my gosh, that's so good. So she's running up this mountain. She's going to make the problem worse, straight towards the goblins at night. Fear makes it worse. So she's up the mountain in the dark, and she sits down feeling miserable because she sees her mistake now. She was by the stairs, but her brain wasn't working. It actually starts to rain, I think. But here's where a great silver globe starts hanging in the air. She sees the path, just like the pigeons. She sees the globe that can take her to her grandmother. And so she follows it back down. She follows it up the stairs, and she finds her grandmother.
She's safe. The light, her grandmother's light, leads her home. During this time, Ludi discovers she's gone. Everyone starts freaking out. But by this time, she was knocking at the old lady's door. All right, this next chapter is one of my absolute favorites. It's called Woven and Then Spun. And here is where we get to meet the grandmother in all her glory, I guess is a way to think about it. It is just, she's just so cool. She's amazing to me. The Princess Irene comes in and she's a wreck. She's been outside, she's muddy, she's disheveled, and her grandmother is just as beautiful as is possible to be. Decked out in all her finery, she's wearing her crown. She is just gorgeous and lovely.
She's not spinning anymore. We're in her bedroom where she keeps her crown. We're not in the spinning room anymore. And Irene asks her about it. She's like, nope, I'm done with that. And there's no moonlight. But here's where we first see the rose fire.
I love the rose fire. I'm just going to read this passage. Then Irene looked again and saw that what she had taken for a huge bouquet of red roses on a low stand against the wall was in fact a fire, which burned in the shapes of the loveliest and reddest roses, glowing gorgeously between heads and wings of two cherubs of shining silver. And when she came nearer, she found that the smell of roses with which the room was filled came from the fire roses on the hearth. A rose fire. I mean, actual roses. This is fairyland in its best. Fire destroys. Fire consumes. Fire has to have something to feed upon in order to stay a fire, but not in the grandmother's bedroom. Here we have a living flame. We have a plant, a living vitality that is a fire that will continue to grow and doesn't consume itself. It is beautiful, and the smell, it fills the room with the smell of roses. I just love this picture. This idea of the rose fire makes me very, very happy.
Gather ye rosebuds while ye may. That poem, George MacDonald probably knew that poem. That's an old poem.
I bet he did, yeah.
But yes, this rose fire is beautiful, and this makes Irene timid because she feels grubby. You know, she's dirty, and the grandmother's so beautiful, and the grandmother sweeps her up into her arms and asks something like, "You think I care more about my dress than my granddaughter?" You know, and but it does. It makes her dirty. But the rose fire, it cleanses even her dress. It is a cleansing as well. And Irene's so sweet. She wants grandmother to clean her too, with this rose that cleaned her dress, and she tells her, "No, I can't. It's too hot for you yet." I like that yet. It's still too hot for you. And she tells her, "I don't want you to clean you tonight because you have to go back."
But the grandmother can reach into this rose fire with her bare hands, pluck the rose, and use it to clean herself. She passes it over her dress and she's pristine again. I mean, what power does this woman have that this living fire won't burn her? It's great.
So who do you think she is? Can I ask that right now? I maybe there's a better time, but who do you think she is?
I would like to talk about this at the end.
Okay.
If that's okay.
I said okay.
Because I have my theories.
Fair enough. Okay, so yeah, she, Irene, has to be grubby to go back to the nurse because there has to be a story. Like, where were you? Because the grandmother knows these people who care for her will be looking for her. So she has to go back dirty. But Irene asks about the lamp that brought her home. And this is where the grandmother says her that, yes, she sent it, but not everybody can see it. It's very much the Elisha, give me the eyes to see in the Bible. It's made me think of. But the grandmother tells her that it is a gift born with you, and one day I hope everybody will have. So what a gift for Irene, though, that she has it at the age of 8.
That's not the only gift she's given, though, before she leaves her mother.
She gets a present.
2 of them. Her grandmother has been spinning and is now done spinning, and this little cocoon of beautiful thread is a gift for Irene. But it's interesting because the grandmother also keeps it. She says that the only way you can ever really give something away is to also keep it yourself. It's one of these paradoxes that George MacDonald loves that I think I'd have to think about quite a lot to
That's why he put it in
understand
there. He does that all the time. Like, you go think about that.
Yeah.
You got to keep it to give it.
He also gives Irene a ring, a rose ring. The stone in it is a fire opal, and we learn that it's the same sort of stones that are in the grandmother's crown, but not as bright. It doesn't have as many colors, but it's beautiful, and she gets to put this on her finger, and she gets taught how to use these. What she gets taught is that if she's ever in danger, all she has to do is put the ring under her pillow, and then that thread will be tied to the ring, and it will lead her to her grandmother. So all she has to do is follow the thread.
And it says it will lead her home. And the grandmother tells her sometimes it might seem very roundabout, but you can be sure that while you hold it, I'm holding it too. It's a promise. The other thing Irene gets to do is see the stars. Somehow the grandmother, she can manipulate the walls. So that's how the lamp works as well, where it shines the light and the pigeons or Irene can see it. The walls fade away and she can see the stars shining. Because it said at the beginning, she'd never seen the stars shining. She's not allowed out at night. And even when she was up the mountain, it was raining.
Mm-hmm.
This time, she had time to look at the stars. And I think it's very beautiful and also a gift.
Yeah, I think you're right on that.
The other thing the grandmother tells her is that you have to go back. And Irene's so glad she doesn't say you have to go home. Because she says, I'm so glad because this is my home. Can't I call this my home? And she says, I trust you will always think this your home. I love it. I love it. What a beautiful sentiment.
Any place with a rose fire, I want to be home.
That's your home.
Yeah, it's just great. But she does have to go back, and she does. And kind of in this waking from a dream sort of thing, she's back downstairs and back around the people that have been searching madly, madly for her.
So the nurse does say that she was looking everywhere for her, top to bottom. And I like Irene's thought. She's not quite to the top.
And not quite to the bottom.
If she'd but known, it's true. But the grandmother told her, don't worry about the story about the ring. Okay, it's going to work itself out. And the little girl, she asked her nurse, do you remember who gave me this? And the nurse is like, no, you've worn it so long. I don't remember. I think you've always had it.
I think it must have been your mother gave it you, Princess. But really, for as long as you've worn it, I don't remember that ever I heard. I will ask my King Papa the next time he comes, said Irene.
So some time passes and we are in the spring. And so, the spring, it's a time of renewal and resurrection. Everybody looks forward to the spring, right? It's such a gift to everyone. And the king shows up, and this is Irene's chance to ask him about the ring. And he tells her that it was her queen mama's ring.
And why isn't it hers now? Asked Irene. She does not want it now, said the king, looking grave. Why doesn't she want it now? Because she's gone where all those rings are made. And when shall I see her? Asked the princess. Not for some time yet, answered the king, and the tears came into his eyes. Irene did not remember her mother, and did not know why her father looked so, and why the tears came in his eyes. But she put her arms around his neck and kissed him, and asked no more questions.
And the king does seem reassured by the fact that Irene has the ring. And so he knows that, I think, that the grandmother must have given it to her to help protect her. But he does also leave more men to guard her. He knows things are escalating with the goblins somehow. And before he leaves this time, he goes up the stairs. And we don't get to know what his experience is or which door even he went into, but we assume he went to see the great-great-grandmother.
I think he knows her.
There's a lovely description of it being the springtime where Irene loves the primroses and she greets all of them. She makes their acquaintance. She says, good morning. Are you all smelling very sweet this morning? Like, it's just an adorable way to greet a flower. And that has, I think, a lot to do with that appreciation of nature and seeing the divine, even in something as sweet and new and fresh as a primrose in the springtime. It's beautiful. Then we get to Curdie's clue.
Yeah, we move from the spring to underground, and Curdie's getting kind of tired of looking around. He keeps trying because he knows there's this other plan, but he's not able to really come across it and figure out what it is. And so again, every night he takes this string of thread, he puts it on his axe and his pickaxe, and he starts to explore. And he's looking and looking and looking, but not really finding anything.
This time it goes weird when he's following the thread back because it feels different. Like he doesn't quite know where he is and something's shifted.
I think it's the Cobb's animals that are actually carrying the pickaxe around. I think like a dog who carries it in his mouth, they find it and track it around. So he's not like captured when he finds it, but he uses it to fend off and fight off the animals. But now he's in a place that he doesn't know where he's at. But it does give him the opportunity of listening in to the royal family. And they are personalities. So there's the king, there's the queen, who is terrifying, and then the prince Hairlip.
Hairlip. Terrible name. But they are discussing feet, as they do. And when he gets himself a Sun People bride, and she has those disgusting toes, she's going to skin them and tie them up, bind them up to make them more natural.
That's right. Make her presentable. Those are gross. But then accusations start getting thrown wildly around. It turns out the prince actually has 2 toes. It's shocking.
Shameful. Well, and the queen wears stone shoes. And they give her a rough time about her shoes. And she wants to cut the human tendencies out of the prince. I mean, these are a combative people. Oh my gosh, rough family. But yes, the prince has a couple toes because his mom was the first queen.
Mm-hmm.
He is of the sun people. He has heritage and gross toes. And I like how the chancellor recommends basically goblin surgery to get that fixed.
Don't you want to take care of that?
Ew. Sadly for Curdie, he falls in. He's trying to really listen to find out the plan. He plops down in the middle of this royal family. I find the king actually quite polite.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, he's noble. Noble in his responses, and I think he finds Curdie surprisingly polite because we've already talked about the disdain that the goblins have for the human race, and so he did not expect a human just plopped in the middle of them to be able to answer with, savoir faire, right?
Words.
To be able to talk to him, and he does.
Yeah, at some point, though, Curdie ends up battling them. They're going to capture him, and he comes up with a song that's again, the numbers shift kind of to the number of goblins around him. So he has 10, 20, 30. He rhymes 60 with mixty. And so they fall back for a little bit, but they come back at him really quickly. So he's attacked by hundreds, and he goes for their soft spot.
And it works.
And it works.
He is not scared by any number of goblins. He just keeps going at the feet. They're fleeing in terror. He's winning. But the queen has granite shoes. Her feet are protected, and so she takes him out, and he is captured.
They throw him into utter darkness. I mean, it's pretty terrifying. And so he wakes up in the dark. I don't remember if he hit his head or he goes to sleep. But again, he does not panic. He is a calm customer, that one. But he hears them plotting his end. It's like the trolls in The Hobbit, where they're just debating what they should do with him. I think in the end, they decide to starve him out for a little while. Not all the way. Just make him a little weaker because he was surprisingly strong.
Yeah. Well, and then the queen thinks that's a mistake to make him weaker because right now he's good and fat and he could absolutely be a good meal. And they talk about, well, that's to honor him if the royal family were to eat him. And she's, no, for the animals. We'll feed him to the animals because it's not right that we consume him because that does him too much credit.
But he comes up with a song because it's Curdie, and he suggests in one of a song that the queen has toes, which makes her irate. But he is trapped, and so the king and the queen, they go off to sleep because she needs to calm down.
Can I read that song?
Yeah.
Go to bed, goblin, do. Help the queen take off her shoe. If you do, it will disclose a horrid set of sprouting toes.
Ew.
Doing that off the top of your head, I'm impressed. I could not make up a rhyme like that quickly.
Well, and then it says he thinks about it. He has nothing else to do, passes the time, so he comes up with songs in his head to have on hand for future defeating of goblins. So that was Curdie's clue, his thread that he was following, and it led him here into the darkness. He's in prison. He's trapped. But now Irene has a clue. She wakes up, and initially she's afraid. There's a sound or something. But she's soothed because she feels the thread connected to her ring. She feels that thread, and she follows it faithfully.
Yeah. The first thing she does is she puts the ring under her pillow because that's the way this works. You have to put the ring under the pillow, and then, the
Step
thread
one.
comes, and she goes. She is she's a princess.
Mm-hmm. We are told that. She acts as princesses should and do. And so she follows it, but she expects the thread to take her upstairs to her grandmother because she said that she would hold the other end of it. But it doesn't. It takes her outside into the morning. And here she gets to be out in the morning by herself. This is a cool feeling. It says she felt too happy to be afraid of anything. So she doesn't hesitate. She's heading up the mountain with her finger on this thread.
Never leaves it, never stops. Not only does it take her up the mountain, it then takes her underground.
It plunges her into the mountain. But she's like, well, that's where the thread goes. And she marvels a little bit that she's not more afraid as she goes into the dark of the mountain with nothing but her finger on this thread.
Yeah, no light, she can't see. She is relying solely on the thread of her grandmother.
It says that it felt like she was walking in the story of a dream, which I find very lovely. But eventually, again, she's winding through this labyrinth, right? She doesn't know if there's a minotaur. She knows there's goblins somewhere, but she's not thinking about that. She's thinking about her grandmother and this thread. But at some point, it goes into this stack of rocks.
Yeah, the thread starts doing challenging things. I mean, it takes her up and down. She has to climb, and then it gets to the rocks, and she almost gives up. I mean, she has a little bit of despair there.
She feels forsaken, and she tries to go backwards, and the thread apparently doesn't go backward. There's nothing behind her. Only forward.
But then she thinks to herself, well, I guess I could try and move the rocks. And she does. She gets after it. She starts moving the rocks, and it talks about her bleeding fingers and how sore she is. But the rock pile gets steadily lower and lower, and then the string starts doing weird things. It starts going kind of back and forth. And what we end up seeing is a boulder. There's this like ledge boulder, big rock, and she's clearing all the little rocks away from around it.
At some point, she hears Jabber Bother Smash in this song and realizes, oh, it's Curdie.
There he is.
Yay. So
Curdie had forgotten that he was trying to act weak.
Yeah, that's right.
To lull the goblins into security.
Jabber Bother Smash does not sound particularly weak, but I mean, this is very, again, George MacDonald, the idea of this path to walk that may seem roundabout, and it may be very difficult, bleeding hands, and it is hard work for this little girl, but she steps forward in complete confidence that is taking her where she needs to go. And whatever work it sets her to do is her work to be done. I mean, she's great and follows faithfully. And she's encouraged by Curdie, and he's confused but happy she's there.
Yeah, he has no idea how she got there.
No, it doesn't make sense at all. But they're able to push his way out, basically. She moves enough rocks that he can push on the slab, and he tells her to stand back. And she helps him escape from this inescapable prison. Amazing.
But then he doesn't know where to go. I mean, he's lost underground. But she says, oh, I know. We'll just follow the thread. And so she keeps following the thread. And it takes them places that Curdie does not think is a good idea. But he follows along because he doesn't know where he is. He's able to gather his pickaxe, I think.
He's looking for his pickaxe, and he finds a torch, which is even better.
That's right.
It's got some light.
They got some light. And as they're walking and the torch is smoldering, they see that they have come to the royal bedchamber. And he looks and he sees the queen sleeping in her granite shoes. And so our young hero sneaks up to the queen and is able to remove one of the granite shoes. So again, going back to that short chapter on Curdie, here we have Ariadne saving Theseus from the labyrinth by means of a golden clue. And here we have little Hop o' My Thumb, this little guy, taking the magical footwear from the ogress in order to use it for his own purposes and to be able to expose a weak spot.
She has toes.
Yeah.
Gross.
Yeah. He was just making fun of her, so he was a little surprised to actually see this.
She actually has toes. This is where he also grabs his pickaxe. It means something to him. It's important. But trying to pick off the second shoe from the queen was a mistake because it wakes her up, and they run. So Irene smartly douses the light because the goblins can't see without a light, and she doesn't need to see. She has the thread. So she follows the thread and actually takes her back to this place he thought they couldn't fit through. The goblins didn't think they could fit through. She's like, no, this is where the thread goes. It's what we do.
And I think it says that she fit through easily, Curdie less easily.
And so here they also have some time as they're wending their way back through the labyrinth following this thread to tell their stories to each other, to kind of catch up. And Curdie calls the thread nonsense.
Yeah.
He's like, you're making it up. And she says, well, if you don't know what I mean, what right have you to call it nonsense? Clearly there's something here you don't understand, and it's working.
Yeah. How else could this happen? She also tries to get Curdie to feel the thread. Reach out, feel it, touch it, and he can't. He reaches and he cannot feel it. So he thinks he never thinks she's a liar.
Clearly she believes it.
But he assumes she must be crazy, a little bit insane, a little bit touched, because otherwise this just wouldn't make any sort of sense.
Yeah, but they actually escape through that same place where those creatures, the goblin creatures, are escaping out through the water hole. They come out by her castle. And she says, now you must believe without seeing, for you can't deny it has brought us out of the mountain. She's right.
That's a good argument.
Yes,
that's persuasive.
Amazing. But she does invite him to come upstairs, like, come meet my grandmother.
And she's so excited to share her grandmother. She's so excited to share the love and light and beauty of her grandmother with him and to convince him. And so they go up the stairs, they go into the room. She sees her grandmother, she climbs on his lap, but things don't turn out the way that Princess Irene expects them to.
Yeah, Curdie is bewildered, and he tells her, all I see is a big bare garret room, and there's some pigeons around. And the grandmother's talking to Irene and tells her, people must believe what they can, and those who believe more must not be hard upon those who believe less. Curdie's not there yet. He can't see it yet. And he feels duped, like she's making a fool out of him.
Yeah, you're making game of me, he says.
Yeah, it's uncomfortable, and he reacts in anger and kind of storms off back to home. And Irene is trying to understand because she can see. Why can't he see? And grandmother tells her some wisdom. Seeing is not believing; it is only seeing. And she tells Irene, we're all very anxious to be understood, and it's very hard not to be. But really, the key is to understand other people. That's what's more necessary. And then now that Curdie's gone, Irene is cut up from this time in the mountain and hauling away these stones. So she gets her bath this time. She gets cleaned this time. Mm-hmm. And it's beautiful. It clears her completely. I love the snatches of a song. Like she can hear a song. It's kind of poetic. And it talks about how later in her life, she, snatches of the song would still come back to her and help her even later. It's beautiful.
Like in At the Back of the North Wind, when the song he sings that the person can't really hear but will always sort of remember. Mm-hmm. And the bath, the dark water with the stars shining in and no bottom. Mirror of Galadriel, anyone? It just jumped out.
It's beautiful.
The emphasis on this chapter of understanding, about how that's the higher road, not to be understood, not to be believed, but to understand someone else. I think that's in many ways the third strongest influence of this story. I talked about Theseus and the Minotaur. I talked about Hop o' My Thumb, but I think this third one also gets to the heart. And this isn't a myth. This is a prayer. This is the prayer of St. Francis, and I just want to read this out. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. O divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, it is in pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. I think that speaks to the wisdom of the grandmother.
Amen. Yeah, I used to have the first part of that engraved on a bracelet, and someone stole it from me. They stole that prayer. And then I figured, okay, all to the good. May they learn something.
This is one of the old arguments, right? Is it a good or a bad thing if somebody steals your Bible?
Let's go with good.
Yeah.
Let's go with good. So next up, we're back to Curdie and his mother, and he's mad that he got to look like a fool, and he's also mad that he responded in anger towards Irene, who saved him, and he tells his parents. So he gets some sleep, he eats something, and then he tells his parents a story. And here's where his mom has some wisdom for him. She points out that she did take you out of the mountain, so she must have had a guide, and you just don't get it. There's something you don't understand here. And she tells him a story. Basically, they use the phrase good stories. Did you notice?
Oh, I noticed.
Oh, yeah. It says, she's talking about the king's family, the king and the queen, and they're kind of a cut above. They're different. Strange stories concerning the king's family. All good stories, but strange. So years ago, Curdie's mom was attacked by goblins on her way home from the mine. And this large globe of silver light, it dazed the goblins. It distracted them. And then this pigeon, this beautiful white pigeon came and it drove them off. She was saved doing this. She got home. She had this pathway lit for her home. And she tells him this story. And this makes Curdie realize, wow, I need to apologize.
Yeah. How strange, exclaimed Curdie. Yes, it was strange, but I can't help believing it, whether you do or not.
So he knows he needs to apologize in future, but he doesn't have a way to see the princess. I mean, she's a princess. Let's not forget.
Yeah, he's a minor.
He's a minor.
He's a peasant.
But he's saving the day here. He's following these goblins as they continue mining, and he figures out it's a straight line. Okay, he didn't figure out plan A from being in there exactly, but he did learn that Hairlip, gross name, Goblin Prince, he's intending to marry a sun person. Who might that be? They think highly of themselves, nothing less than a princess.
Mm-hmm.
So he actually maps it out, and he realizes they're tunneling towards the castle. That is plan A. They're going to tunnel to the castle and steal the princess and have her marry Hairlip.
Yeah, it's a horrible thought. Horrible thought.
Gross.
Curdie is not going to let this happen, and he doesn't really know how he's going to stop it, but he's going to do everything he can to try and stop it.
This next one, again, Irene behaves like a princess. It's what she does, and it does say she's getting older very fast. Mm-hmm. She grows up. She has wisdom and understanding because the nurse is mad that she hid from them. In the nurse's mind, she hid all day, and Irene is offended and says, you don't get to talk to me that way. But she doesn't flip out in anger. She says it very calmly. She asks for a new guardian, someone who will not accuse her of lying when she isn't. Very grown up of her for this 8, maybe now 9-year-old.
Mm-hmm. And all the other servants and knights and everything love her, so they are there ready to help. Ludi is chastised and begs to be accepted back, and Irene takes her. Doesn't accept another guardian at this point, but she's clear that she is not under Ludi's authority in that way. Ludi cannot speak to her like that.
Yeah, and they don't treat her like a baby so much anymore. She's growing up, both in her mind and her body, but especially in her heart and mind. Fast forward a little, it's calm for a little while, but now it's summer and the goblins keep mining deeper. Curdie's waiting, right? It's too soon. There's nothing to be done now, but he's watching. And when he knows that the goblins are getting close, he starts waiting in the garden. That's a problem when there are, 6, 12 guardsmen on patrol all the time. He gets caught. They actually shoot him.
With a crossbow. He gets shot with a crossbow.
Curdie, our hero. It's really horrible. And he tries to tell them about the goblins, and his leg is not doing well. They think he's raving.
And sometimes he is. He goes full on feverish with this wound. And so even when he kind of makes sense, by the time the authorities, the higher levels come to talk with him, he's clearly raving. And so he cannot get the messages across. And you can kind of see it from both sides. You can see where the guards, we captured this kid who is sneaking up and then is mad, right? Is insane. And so you can see why they wouldn't really take his warnings, nor is it clear to me how clear his warnings were.
Well, and Ludi does not help. The nurse shows up and's like, oh, I know that guy.
He tried to kiss the princess.
Yeah. So they lock him up. He's in the castle, but Irene doesn't know he's there, and he's not well. But then we go to the cellars and the servants in the castle, and they're hearing things. They're like, what do you think that is? Big rats? The miners? They're always blowing stuff up on the mountain.
That's right.
And then there's a full-on earthquake. It is serious. But they just assign it to things, and never crosses their mind it could be goblins.
No, why would it? It just, only Curdie knows at this point that this is a risk. Well, the goblins, though, are industrious, and they are working, and that big earthquake was they had moved a chunk of rock that was far too big, and they were worried they had given the game away at that point. But they didn't, and what they came to next was sand, and they were able to keep digging, and they came up in the wine cellar. And they rush back to tell the king and the queen, and this is where the attack forces start to gather.
Yeah, so the goblins are coming all together, and here we actually are in a dream of Curdie's, and it goes back through his whole story and waiting for the goblins and all these things with the thread and talking to Irene. But then in his dream, he's yelling, the cobs are coming, and it says he tries to get out of bed, and he can't. And he tries to get out of bed. He's still dreaming. It says 20 times he tries. But in his dream, this beautiful old lady comes into the room. And she brings this rose-smelling ointment. And it heals his leg in his dream. So he's still dreaming at this point. But then suddenly, when he does wake up, the goblins are there. So he dresses in a hurry. I like it. He has nails in his shoes now. And there's no mention of his leg. He'd been dreaming that whole time. It makes it very clear. But he gets up and he is out the door with a short sword and he's singing the whole time, stamping, slashing, singing loud. I mean, he is going for their weakness. He tells the guards actually, go for their feet. The guards didn't know. They were losing because goblins have hard heads.
Yeah, they're clanging off these heads with their swords, and it's doing no good. And the captain of the guard is being sat on by the king of the goblins. I mean, the humans are losing here. But then Curdie shows up, and he puts life back into them. He demonstrates the weakness, and he starts dancing around. The queen, though, is there in all her authority and power, but missing one shoe. Now, she is not so vulgar as to go without a shoe and expose her toes. So she has one shoe of skin and one shoe of granite, which makes her a little lopsided, but that granite shoe is still dangerous. And so Curdie and the queen engage in this epic kind of step-off battle where she's got one vulnerable shoe and one attack shoe, and they're kind of stepping back and forth at each other to try and come out. It's well described.
Attack shoe. It is. You're right. But at some point, I think he gets her in the face and she's quiet for a bit. I forget, but everybody's looking for the princess. But she's missing. All the goblins they run from him, the smashing, but
one of them grabs Ludi and is trying to escape down through, and Curdie is running after them. But remember, the entrance is through the wine cellar, and the royal butler is quick on his feet. He's a smart man. As they get to the wine cellar, the butler offers the goblins a drink of wine, and they like it. So rather than escaping quickly and getting away with Ludi, they are getting drunk on the wine in the cellar until Curdie can come. He's able to save Ludi, but the goblins escape. They run down, they get away, and Curdie is sure they've taken the princess with them.
It's funny, once the goblins all run, they'll run away like rats. Ludi, she's still scared, but she won't leave Curdie's side. He is now her defender. He is now trusted, but they cannot find the princess anywhere until something touches Curdie's hand. Says it's a very slight touch, but he realizes this is her thread. This is this is Irene's thread, and he can feel it now. That's how far he's come. And so he kind of ducks away from Ludi. He gets away, but it leads him up the mountain.
Yeah, it doesn't go down the hole. It goes up the mountain, and he can't believe it. He thinks he's getting further and further away. But just like Irene, who would not leave that thread, even when it took her underground into a rock, he is following the thread up the mountain.
It actually leads him home, his cottage on the hill. When he opens the door, that's where the thread disappears. He sees his mom holding this little girl princess, and the princess is asleep.
George MacDonald does such brilliant things with his books. This is an absolute twisting, a subversion of the fairy tale hero trope. So Curdie does not save the princess. The princess didn't need to be saved because the grandmother did. She had this all under control. The grandmother saves Curdie. The grandmother saves the princess. All Curdie had to do was what he could, where he was at, and then finally to submit to belief and trust in the grandmother. It's beautiful and powerful and poignant. I love a good princess salvation as much as anyone, but I love what he does with this, where Curdie did not need to save the princess. The princess was already safe.
And he gets to apologize for not believing her earlier. And she doesn't know. Irene doesn't know why the thread even brought her there. She just trusts it. She doesn't know the goblins are in the castle. The thread was there. So she followed it as she was. And here's where he realizes, oh, my leg's okay. And it smells of roses.
Mm-hmm.
So Irene knows exactly who healed his leg.
That's Grandma.
But here's where he can save many. Because Curdie remembers plan B. The goblin's plan B. Says, I can't take the princess back right now. We have to go save the day. So he gets his dad, the miners. They work together because they had, and this one's called mason work. They block up the mouth of the mine because the effort to kidnap the princess didn't work. And he remembers, the backup plan was to flood them out. Mm-hmm. And so they run And they block the mine. They prevent this terrible thing from happening. And it acknowledges when they come out from this work that it's good work, that evidently a storm had been raging all day. There's water everywhere, but they had no idea. They were inside the mountain. There's no storm inside the mountain, not like that. But then the flooding, though, from this storm is serious. And he gets back to his cottage and he's worried because he crosses this river that he hopes his mom and the princess didn't go out because it would have washed them away.
Yeah, they wouldn't have made it.
But he finds them and they're happy. I mean, it says the cottage is a mess. You can't get the fire going. It's flooding the cottage. But their troubles made these girls merrier. They were happy together. And this is where the mom comments on, it depends what your inside house looks like.
Yeah.
What that external attitude, how you're feeling. What does your inside house look like? I like this idea of my inside house.
I like that too. Curdie's mom is just awesome. She's so great. And Irene is a true princess. Irene is happy and noble in this hut. She loves her people.
Is good. And she tells Curdie's mom, he's like, that's the kind of thing my grandmother says. I've heard stuff like that. She's so cute.
Well, the rain doesn't last forever, and Curdie knows that the people in the house are going to be going mad, going crazy looking for the princess. And so they go down to take her back so they can find her. And on their way, they see the king. The king is there with his men-at-arms, and this is where Curdie runs. He grabs the princess and runs to the king because he knows this will kill the king. It will break his heart to think that the princess has been taken by the goblins.
Yeah, it says the king may break his heart before he knows that she's safe. And this is where he runs. This is the only time I think Curdie runs. Well, he might have run to the mine to block it up. But
yeah, I think he might.
Not out of fear. This is to prevent heartbreak. But it describes the king where he just looks like the life has gone out of him. But then his princess shows up and he has a cry of inarticulate joy. And he won't put her down until she tells the story. But mostly she talks about Curdie. And all she does is praise him, and everybody else praises him. And she tells her king, long ago, I promised him a kiss in gratitude, and she wasn't allowed to give it. Can I do it now? And he says, yes, keep your word, as a princess should.
And Curdie gets his kiss from the princess.
And then they have a feast. It's wonderful. And then there's this harper singing, as harpers do. I mean, Curdie could have done it. He comes up with songs all the time. But this harper is putting together their story and this adventure. And then there's a weird sound. And it's funny, the feast went way too late, way past Irene's bedtime. It says she went to bed, little girl went to bed. But she comes downstairs at this sound and she's following the thread. And Curdie notices, and the king notices, her fingers on the thread. The grandmother's leading her yet again. And there's this weird sound like a hurricane wind, something weird. Curdie figures it out at this point, and without explaining, he asked the king to order everyone out right now. And the king, I like this quote, he says, the king knew well there was a time when things must be done and questions left till afterward. So the king says, everybody out of the castle. Go now.
And the first part of that sentence does say, the king, who was the wisest man in the kingdom. He takes everyone goes, and it's a good thing they do because that water that the goblins released, there's no outlet anymore. The miners blocked it up. Curdie mentions here that he hadn't thought about this, about what would happen. There is now this hole leading up through the wine cellar of the house. Guess where the water is going to go? It's going to flood all of that because since it can't get into the miner's mine anymore, it's got to go somewhere. And so it's going to be the goblin terrain and it's going to be this hole into the house.
Yeah, so water erupts out of the Great Hall. The doors are knocked down as these people flee. It floods through the tunnel, and this is the readiest outlet, right? They can't go out anywhere else. But they're kind of stuck right there, and Curdie offers to go rescue the horses. Very noble of him. And he's worried about the grandmother because he knows she's in the top stair. He went to the room even though he didn't see her there. But Irene's like, no, my grandmother is in no danger. They actually see the globe of light and this pigeon comes flying down, circles above them. But the light and the pigeon vanish together. She is in no danger.
Mm-hmm.
And we learn after this that the goblins, I mean, they're in the midst of this water. Most of them drown. It's, they did not think this through what would happen for them? The king invites Curdie to come with him. The king's going to take Irene away from this place now, and he invites Curdie to come. And Curdie here chooses to stay with his parents.
Because he feels like he can do more for them than he can for the king.
Yeah, but first, I love this. He asks for a warm petticoat for his mom. He didn't have time to work extra to make money to buy one himself. It's a very sweet request. And the king, as he rides off, he commissions the people, take care of the miners, right? They don't have a place to go until the water recedes. And the king and the little princess, they ride away into the starry night. She gets the stars by the end. Love it.
Going back to Hop on My Thumb, remember, so the magic shoe thing makes sense, right? Where he's able to remove the shoe. But then the other component of this is, remember the ogre, in seeking to kill the little boys, kills his own children. And I think we see that playing through here. It is the action of the goblins in trying to kill and destroy others that gets turned back on themselves. And so, again, I think we see these themes from these classic works that get portrayed out of this, but taken up into something bigger and turned into its own thing.
It does say the goblins who do escape, they grow milder, more like brownies. So this man is Scottish, and I looked up brownies, and it says in the goblins, their skulls and their hearts become softer. And so brownies remind me more than anything else of like a house elf in Harry Potter. Mm-hmm. They're very loyal and hardworking. They work at nights. They never want payment. They want like a bowl of cream or something, and they hate being watched.
Yeah,
which is funny. Turn into more like little house elves, and they're friendlier.
I think the cob creatures. Can you say Bigfoot? Loch Ness Monster, all the cryptids.
We are in Scotland. Let's go with Nessie, yes. But the miners reroute the waters, and it is a happy ending. But it ends kind of open-ended. Mm-hmm. It's very quiet because it says, if you want to learn more, read the next one.
Which I highly recommend. I love this first one, but I think I like the second one even better.
Oh, even just the mountain description at the beginning is worth it. If you don't read anything else, it's superb. Okay, so the lady, the grandmother, who do you think she is?
I think she is religion in a couple of different ways. I think she is Christianity and the church. But this was something I wanted to go into a little bit because I've been thinking a lot about this. I mean, this is a fairy tale. It's a children's story, right? It's clearly written for children. All his little asides and things are meant for that. So why would a grown-up keep reading it? Why would we all keep reading it? Why would I think this is as good as I do? And I know everyone reads in different ways, but I want to kind of play a little game here and sort of share the way I think about stories once I've turned the page and closed the book. Once I've read through it, when these stories are going around in my brain, what do I think through? And in order to do this, I think we need to go back to our concepts of allegory versus symbolism. Allegory is a one-to-one. This thing means this. It's a puzzle. The author has something in mind, and the game is to try and figure out the puzzle. Classically, Tolkien hated this. A lot of authors hated this because there was a domination that came from the author. There was one way to do it, and frankly, the story wasn't even important. It was all a matter of finding out what the clue was, and then you've got it figured out, and who cares about the story? Tolkien, Lewis, all these great writers preferred the idea of symbolism, where something can represent things, but it's not a one-to-one. It's deeper and more fluid and more flexible, and it dwells in the scope of the reader to be able to invest into the story and get different things out of it. So it means every time you read a story, you can get something different, and every reader can get something different. Some of these things are fundamentally true. And so part of the game is trying to apply some interpretive lens to this and see what you can get out of it. So I think that the old grandmother is religion, is Christianity. She talks about being very, very old. And she even talks about, hey, by the time I'm 2,000 years old, something. This would have been written in, what did we say, the late 1800s? And so that would fit with that kind of 2,000-year-old thing. She's also this being of truth that's able to give truth and guidance to those underneath her. And her name is Peace. So I really think there's this idea of the divine, this idea of Christianity, this idea of the church that's there with her. Now, the reason I think this is as you pick different characters and different plot points in the book, it all kind of makes sense to me. So who is Irene? Irene is also Peace, but she's the daughter or the granddaughter of the church. She is raised in the house where this truth is, and it's a matter of her being introduced to it from the truth itself. She just has to accept it. She just has to believe it. Who is Curdie? Curdie is the virtuous person outside of the church who doesn't yet have that faith and hasn't been gifted with being raised inside of it. But he has virtue, as we see throughout, which lends itself naturally to the faith. He also has poetry. He has verse. He's got the ability to touch the divine through words and through rhyme, which is kind of seeing through a glass darkly the reality of God. And so Curdie, it is very natural for him to be a helper for the church, but the church and the grandmother knows that he's not yet ready to believe, but then he does, and he becomes a servant of the church and of the grandmother. I think that's cool. You have things like the symbolism of the pigeons. What is a pigeon really but a dove? And what is the great symbolization of the dove? It's the Holy Spirit. These are the messengers of God, right? This is the Spirit of God that does the work of God in people, that goes out into the world to do it. I think that's beautiful. What is the rose fire? The rose fire is also the Spirit of God, but can you also say a bush that burns and is not consumed? Where do we find that? We find that in Exodus. Now, again, none of this is allegorical. None of this is a one-to-one comparison, but there's these layers that you can just bask in it and think about it, and it'll take you to the next and to the next. Who are the goblins? So the goblins are the idea that there are people before the church came, and some accepted and some rejected it. And so you have what happens to those who reject truth, and they become deformed. Even their pets become deformed around them. And not only can they not endure the sunlight, but they don't want to endure the sunlight. They become vain in their own eyes. And so it's things like this that you can just go and go and go and go. And I mean, I spent far too much time at work today when I should have been thinking about other things, just thinking about these things. And this is, I think, where literature becomes so beautiful, because these are just the things that I'm rattling around in my brain. Imagine talking through this with somebody. Imagine having 2, 3, 4 of you where you're bouncing these ideas back and forth and saying, yeah, that makes sense. No, that doesn't make sense. Did you think about this? Oh, that also works in this way. I mean, there's a bunch of these things, but I know I'm ranting now, so I'll pull it in. But that's who I think the grandmother is.
There's like a million ways to go with that because you mentioned lots of things. So I'll go with 2 that I cross my fingers on. That's something I do. Sorry. Helps me remember things. This one, their feet, the goblin feet, because they make a big deal about their feet. And it is funny. But also, if we're thinking about a journey, right? So Curdie's faith journey, as he believes more, as he develops understanding and clarity, he has the feet that can walk that path. Mm-hmm. They do not have a feet. They can walk any path. They are, even when they're carrying out their household goods, the goblins say, well, I could carry 10 times more if it weren't for these feet, right? They are so weak to move forward, to progress. They are stuck without any resilience in their feet, which takes me also to the great divorce.
Yes.
Right? When they get up there, their feet are too tender. They can't walk anywhere. Everything hurts them. They can't progress until and unless they get stronger. So I guess I focused on the feet because you said a lot of things, but I do have a question just because we and others say all the time how much impact George MacDonald had, not just on Lewis, but I think on Chesterton as well as other Inklings. Do you think he was a medievalist? Because I know, and we've talked about that, like in the discarded image, right? Like how vital that mentality was, especially to C.S. Lewis. In what way, or was George MacDonald a medievalist? Go.
I do think he was a medievalist because his world was both big and small. He loved system, he loved order, but there was beauty throughout it. And so I do think he was a medievalist.
But he wouldn't have had the research background like Lewis did to have an appreciation of it specifically, right? Wouldn't
Not
that
to
be
the
the
degree
difference?
Lewis did. I think this is where he didn't have quite the same book learning that C.S. Lewis did, but few men in history have.
Right.
He had it in his soul. He had it in his heart. And that's not to say he didn't read widely, because he read widely. But very few are going to have the breadth that C.S. Lewis achieved over the course of his life.
So with the grandmother, for me, I didn't give her a name. So, I mean, she has a name, Irene. She is peace. But I thought of her more in the idea of a prayer. And George MacDonald has a lot written on what he called intercessory. Is that how you pronounce it?
I think so.
Interceding prayer, interceding for someone else, interceding with prayers to God. And the question about, well, how could me praying for someone actually do anything, right? If everything is the will of God, if God sent the rain, so Irene would be in the castle that day, how does me praying something differently do anything at all? And I love this line from George MacDonald. And it says, it starts with a question. It says, and why should the good of anyone depend on the prayer of another? I can only answer with the return question, why should my love be powerless to help another? So the grandmother, I think she is that interceding. Because if you think of her as all powerful and almost too divine in herself, it almost would come across as manipulative. She could have then prevented Curdie from getting shot with a crossbow, right? Like she could have prevented it. She could have seen all the things. She could have known that, Irene was going to think she's a dream. And it's not manipulative in that way. But there is this idea of intervening in the name of love to make good happen. Mm-hmm. So pieces of a thought there.
Yeah, Thomas Aquinas talks about the idea that God loves to use secondary causes. God could do everything on his own if he wanted to, but he doesn't want to. He wants to use us. And in doing that, he ennobles us. He brings us up into his love by being actors, by getting to be a part of his love. It is a gift of God that we get to serve him and do this love. And this is where, again, I don't think in this book that she's God. I think she's more the church and faith. But even that takes on different layers, because how is the church described throughout the New Testament? It's described as the body of Christ. And I do believe that Christ is God. And so the body of Christ means God can act through her with the authority of God himself. And so again, there's that level. But how else is the church described? It's described as the bride of Christ, this beautiful creature that is meant to be wed to the Lord for all eternity. And so again, in this way, it gets to be itself, but it also gets to be an expression of the divine love. And you can do this in a story. This is a way a story can express truth that's very hard to explain with simple prose, with just talking it out. But you can see it in the person of the grandmother and in the response to the grandmother from Curdie, from Curdie's mom, from the king. You see it in that, and I think that's beautiful. And with that, we'll turn the page, and we hope you join us for the next chapter.
Hello, friends, and thank you so much for listening to the Good Stories podcast. You're invited to join our Patreon page to build a community of people who all love a good story. You can join for free to find all our episodes in one place and hopefully enjoy some bonus short stories and conversations. And if you'd like to support the show financially, paid subscribers get some fun benefits, including a Good Stories podcast t-shirt and a few other surprise gifts as we go along. You can find the link in the show notes or look us up on Facebook. And as always, if you leave us a review, it really helps others learn about the show. Thank you for being a part of the story.